Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's MDM webcast, Inventory Management Best Practice for 2012. I'm joined today by Jon Schreibfeder and Rod Daugherty. Our 60-minute program today is sponsored by Manhattan Associates. I'm Tom Gale, publisher of Modern Distribution Management newsletter and website mdm.com. I have the pleasure of moderating today's event. Our program today focuses on lean practices in inventory management. Every wholesale distribution company has undergone some form of restructuring their business model. The heart of any distributor's business is the branch and warehouse. Today, our speakers will share best practices to gain efficiency and competitive advantage through practical inventory management processes. Before I introduce our speakers, a few brief housekeeping notes. If you'd like to access the handouts for today's program, please go to mdm.com/slides, and you can see that at the top right of our webcast window there, and download them now. Or email us at info@mdm.com, and we'll send them to you as a PDF attachment. Our program is being recorded today, and we will be sending you a follow-up link to this recording if you'd like to share it with your colleagues or listen to it again. I do encourage questions today. In the interest of time, we won't be taking questions by phone, but please use the chat function on the bottom left of your screen to ask a question at any time or if you're experiencing any technical issues. Simply type your question into the chat window at the very bottom left and hit the Enter key. Finally, you can make the slides larger and view our presentation today in full screen mode by clicking the button in the top right of your screen that says Full Screen. You can return to the normal size by hitting your Escape key. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers today. Rod Daugherty is the Senior Director of Product Strategy for the Demand Forecasting and Inventory Optimization Solutions at Manhattan Associates, where he oversees the product direction of these applications. For the last 18 years, Rod has been a consultant, designer, and product director for multiple replenishment software companies. Prior to his career in inventory optimization software, Rod held various positions at a 1,000-store drugstore retail chain, first in store operations and later in merchandising. Rod's years of first-hand experience in retail and distribution wholesale replenishment provides valuable insight for our audience today. Jon Schreibfeder is well known to many on our call today. He's president of Effective Inventory Management, Inc., a firm dedicated to helping manufacturers, distributors, and large retailers get the most out of their investment in stock inventory. For over 20 years, Jon has helped over 2,000 firms improve their productivity and profitability through better inventory management. Jon's designed several inventory management computer systems and has also served as the distribution industry troubleshooter for 2 major computer companies. He's the author of numerous articles and a series of books on effective inventory management, including the recently published 5th edition of Achieving Effective Inventory Management. As a special bonus today, we're offering a 10% discount off of Jon's book to those on the call. Simply enter the promotional code WEBCAST in the shopping cart when you order at mdm.com/store. And with that, gentlemen, welcome. And Rod, I'd like to invite you to kick off our discussion today.
Thanks, Tom. I'd also add my welcome and thanks to all of you who have joined the call today. At Manhattan Associates, our demand forecasting and inventory optimization philosophy is complementary and aligned with that of Jon in effective inventory management. I just want to take a couple of minutes and illustrate the key points of our solution suite at Manhattan Associates. Our solutions employ a common supply chain process platform, like you see in this slide, that we call SCOPE, Supply Chain Optimization, Planning Through Execution. That includes merchandise planning, demand forecasting, inventory optimization, order lifecycle management, transportation, and distribution management, all sitting on the same platform. Atop our supply chain solutions, we have additional platform applications including total cost to serve, supply chain visibility, supply chain intelligence, and supply chain event management. Today, our topic centers around demand forecasting and inventory optimization. Our inventory optimization solution is predicated on the premise that while selling generates revenue, better buying generates profit. The key principles of our solution are forecast optimization. Everything downstream starts with the demand forecast, and that includes things like demand cleansing, seasonal profiling, causal forecasting, and of course the forecasting algorithms themselves. The next step there underneath forecast optimization is replenishment optimization, and that includes things like multi-echelon inventory optimization, multi-channel replenishment, safety stock optimization, order frequency simulation, the ability to balance the cost of acquiring and carrying goods, lead time forecasting, and product life cycle. The step below that in the middle, inventory modeling, includes things like push allocation, constrained supply allocation, inventory layering so that you can see a snapshot of what your on-hand investment is today. In other words, how much of the on-hand is dedicated to safety stock, how much is dedicated to cycle stock, and so on, up to 27 discrete layers. And then investment buying is the next step that some of our wholesale customers use, and that's profit-based algorithms that analyze and recommend investment buys on vendor discounts, announced price increases, bill-back opportunities, and one-time buy opportunities. And finally, the last step is order acceptance or order validity, and automatically ensuring that the most economical and profitable order is also an acceptable order to the supplier, and taking into account things like restrictions like minimums and maximums and the like. And orbiting all of these key principles are graphical capabilities and the ability to generate reports and analytics to further enhance buying decision support. So thanks very much for giving me a couple of minutes to introduce our solutions and philosophy. And now I'm pleased to turn it over to our featured speaker, Jon Schreibfeder.
Well, thank you very much, Rod, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. My name is Jon Schreibfeder. I'm president of Effective Inventory Management, and that's what we're here to discuss this afternoon. Now, many times people ask me, what is effective inventory management? You see the goal of effective inventory management on your screen right now. We believe this is what you're trying to do with your inventory. First of all, meet or exceed your customers' expectations of product availability. That is the primary goal. If you don't do that, you're going to be out of business. But in achieving that first part of the goal, in meeting or exceeding your customers' expectations of product availability, we want to do that with the amount of each individual item that will either maximize your net profits or minimize your total inventory investment. We want you to be, to put it very bluntly, mean and lean with your inventory. Now, as Rod said, there are many facets in achieving that goal of effective inventory management. We only have an hour today, so I want to talk to you about the first steps. These are things that you can start doing right now. It's true, you do need good software, like what Manhattan Associates has available and will be showing you. But you also need policies and procedures that will lead you to that goal of effective inventory management. So this afternoon, we're going to be discussing determining what needs to be stocked in each store, branch, or warehouse, what your customers expect you to have available for immediate delivery. We will be discussing liquidating your unwanted material, analyzing and improving the accuracy of your forecasts. As Rod said, this is the key to success. But forecasts are a prediction. And as a very wise person once said, there are actually only two types of forecasts: inaccurate forecasts and lucky forecasts. So you may, in all probability, for many of your inventory items, have to maintain what we call reserve inventory or safety stock. This is what you're going to have on hand just in case you sell more than you predicted you would sell or use, or your vendor has a delay in getting you a replenishment shipment. So these are the four areas we're going to discuss today. So let's get started. When you stock a product, you are making a commitment. Notice that word's underlined. You're making a commitment to have that product available in reasonable quantities. Whenever I visit a distributor or a retailer or even a manufacturer, I am shocked that they have two types of material in their warehouse. We call them stock and stuff. Stock is what you intend to be out in your facility, what your customers expect you to have available for immediate delivery. Stuff is everything else. One of the first things I want to work with you on is to separate your stock from your stuff. What we suggest you do is look at those items that haven't been pulled, haven't been used that often over the previous 12 months. I'm showing you a list of products, or an inventory summary actually, from one of our clients. It shows you the number of items, cost of goods sold, sales dollars, and inventory dollars of those products that were used in 12 of the past 12 months, 11 of the past 12 months, 10 of the past 12 months, etc. I want to concentrate on those items that weren't used that often, particularly those items that sold in 3, 2, 1, or didn't sell at all in the past 12 months. Now, I will never tell you to discontinue a product. I never do that. I don't know your business. All I'm going to do is question why you're stocking it. I want you to prepare a list of products that sold in 3 or fewer of the past 12 months. Arrange these items in descending order based on inventory value. Ask your salespeople, ask your technicians, ask management, why are we carrying each and every one of these products? What is the reason we have this in stock available for immediate delivery? Do customers realistically expect this item to be available off the shelf? What are your salesmen going to say? Of course, our customers expect us to have everything available for immediate delivery. Let me rephrase that question. Could a customer get this item from a competitor off the shelf for immediate delivery? You want to have better service than your competitors, but you probably cannot afford to have perfect service. If you want perfect service, if you never want to be out of a product, if you never want to disappoint a customer, I'm sure that Rod and his team can calculate how much inventory you will need to achieve that goal, but you probably can't afford it. You have to determine the level of service you want to provide to your customers. Looking at these slow-moving products, ask, is each and every one a critical item that you have to have on hand in case of emergency? Does the high profit justify maintaining this item in stock? Is it used to sell another product? But I also want you to pay attention to this fourth question I have on this screen, which is very important. Can you sell another product? Can you use another product in place of this slow-moving item? You have enough competition outside of the walls of your business. You don't have to encourage competition within your warehouse. 2 products competing for the same sale. I want to move customers whenever possible to a more popular product. Now, as we go through this process, I want to separate your inventory into 3 categories. We call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. Your inventory is, in fact, just like a Clint Eastwood movie. You have good inventory, that's what you make money on. Making money is good. Bad inventory. You probably heard this. We lose money on this product, but if we didn't have it, we couldn't sell something else. In order to sell this, we have to carry that. That is bad. You lose money on it, but it contributes to other profitable sales. It is a necessary evil. Ugly inventory. Anything that isn't good or bad. You lose money on it, and it does not contribute to any other profitable sale. Why in the world would you ever carry ugly inventory? It doesn't make sense. Now, how do we separate the good from the bad from the ugly? One way I know we can't do it is by looking at gross margins. gross margins are meaningless. What did I say? Let me repeat it. Gross margins are meaningless. Gross margins are the worst metric, in my opinion, ever in the history of business. Why? Because companies have gone bankrupt trying to maximize their gross margins. Notice I say here, gross margin dollars don't vary as the amount of inventory increases. Look at that gross margin equation. Sales dollars minus cost of goods sold divided by sales dollars. You don't see inventory in there. Look at this item. Last year I had sales of $10,000. Cost of goods sold, $6,000. Gross profit of $4,000. That's a 40% gross margin. Okay? But this company has $12,000 in inventory. How could they have accumulated $12,000 in inventory? Well, perhaps sales pressured buyers to get the lowest possible unit cost. How did they do that? By buying a lot of the product. If you pay commissions based on gross margin, you are encouraging your salespeople to beat up your buyers. Beat them up to get the lowest possible unit cost. The fact that you have too much inventory doesn't harm them at all. I want to move you from gross margin to a better measurement, one that we call adjusted margin or adjusted gross margin. Similar to gross margin in that we are dividing profit dollars by sales dollars, but from the profit dollars we are subtracting your cost of carrying, your average inventory investment. Okay? What is involved in carrying inventory? Well, this includes the cost of putting away stock receipts, moving material within the warehouse, insurance, other charges on your inventory. In Texas, where I'm located, we pay inventory tax. That's part of those other charges. Rent and utilities for the portion of your facility used to store material. Physical inventory or cycle counting. If you don't buy it, you don't have to count it. Shrinkage and obsolescence. This is the biggest component today of carrying inventory. You don't think shrinkage and obsolescence is a big expense? Just think about how much dead stock and slow-moving inventory you have in your warehouse right now. Finally, the opportunity cost of the money invested in inventory. If you're borrowing money, this is the interest expense. If you are funding your purchases out of your own funds, this is what that money could earn in a relatively safe investment. It is critical that each and every one of you knows what it costs you to carry inventory in every one of your facilities. If you go to our website, www.effectiveinventory.com, I'm going to get this screen eventually, there we go, you will see a button on the left-hand side labeled Carrying Costs. Hit that button. You will receive a questionnaire that will allow you to calculate your carrying cost. You send it to us, we will compare your cost to other people in your industry, in your geographic region. We'll tell you if any of the elements is out of the ordinary for a firm similar to yours. No cost, no obligation. We keep this very, very, very confidential. We do not record your company name, just your industry and geographic region. Look at this example. Here I have an item where I'm earning a 15% gross margin. Sales of $1,000, gross profit dollars of 150 divided by 1,000, that's 15%. But if I have a 20% carrying cost, you will see that as the average investment goes up, the adjusted margin goes down. Okay? Typically, right now in North America, we are seeing carrying costs somewhere between 16 and 23% per year. Roughly translated, that means it costs you somewhere between 16 and 23 cents to maintain a dollar's worth of inventory in your warehouse for an entire year. This is going to help you define what's good, what's bad, and what's ugly. If you have a very low adjusted margin, if you have a negative adjusted margin. The item may be bad, it may be ugly. How do you tell the difference? Well, someone might say, yes, I know that I'm losing money on that item that you see on the left. But if we didn't have that, I couldn't carry the line. I need to carry everything in the line. So I'm going to calculate what we call a combined adjusted margin. I'm going to look at profit dollars from carrying the bad or ugly item as well as the rest of the line. That's a total of $7,600 minus the cost of carrying all of the inventory. $5,000 plus $500 is $5,500 divided by total sales, $50,500, which gives me an adjusted margin of 12.9%. Now, for most of you, you'll need an adjusted margin, a minimum adjusted margin, somewhere between 7 and 9% to be profitable. Okay, so we're above that. But what if we weren't? What if this combined adjusted margin was 1%, 2%, maybe even negative? Do I want to get rid of that bad or ugly item? Well, a salesperson might say, no, we can't do that. If we didn't carry this product, we would lose ABC Corporation's business. ABC Corporation requires us to carry a lot of material for their exclusive use. As a matter of fact, ABC Corporation, as you see on this slide, gives us $100,000 worth of business every year. We're making a 15% gross margin. Well, we're carrying $50,000 in inventory specifically for ABC Corporation. If we deduct the cost of carrying that $50,000 in our calculation of an adjusted margin, we get an adjusted margin for dealing with ABC Corporation of 4.5%. Now remember, a couple of minutes ago I said your minimum adjusted margin, which we can help you calculate, will probably be somewhere between 7 and 9%. That's what we have to earn to be profitable. We are losing money, therefore, on sales to ABC Corporation. I need to raise my gross profits or lower that inventory that I am maintaining for their exclusive use. As you go through your slow-moving items, your excess inventory, you're going to be piling it up in one side of the warehouse, and we want to liquidate it. Okay? This gets very emotional. This is an emotional process for many people. In the movie Wall Street, Michael Douglas's character, Gordon Gekko, had a great expression. He said, "Don't get emotional about stock. It clouds your judgment." He was talking about stock as in the stock market. It is truer for all of you who have physical inventory in your warehouse. Remember that inventory is a sunk expense. It is not worth what you paid for it. It is worth what someone is willing to pay you for it. We are not in the antiques business. I want you to get a report out of your system every month, not once a year, but every month, listing those items that are slow moving or that you have a lot of excess inventory on. If you see products that have had little usage, even though they might have a high gross margin but a low adjusted margin, slate them for liquidation. This is very, very, very important. Remember that the more you get for it, the better. But anything you get for it should be considered at this point to be found money. What can we do to liquidate inventory? The best thing we can do is transfer that material to another company location where that inventory is needed. What we do with a lot of our clients is develop what we call an inventory balancing report. We list the material that's going to be liquidated, that is no longer needed, in one facility. And we look at other company locations where that material is still being used. In this chart, you see those locations highlighted in green. That number in green is their monthly forecast. This is going to direct me where to sell, or where to send the material that I no longer need in branch 41. But what else can we do? Well, if customers have discretion over what they buy, if they can choose a green one or a blue one, we can reduce the price, offer salespeople an incentive to move that material, set up a bargain shelf, substitute the product for a less expensive item. Okay? You might say, oh, that costs too much, but it might be the most you can get for this unneeded inventory. Returning material to the vendor. If it is a good vendor that you have a good relationship with that has a good return policy, take advantage of those policies. Even if you're returning material to buy other material, okay, that material hopefully is material that is needed to meet or exceed your customers' expectations of what they're currently looking for. Donating material to a nonprofit organization, throwing it away. One of the things that we have found is very effective, and I say it in the fourth bullet point here, is advertising the availability of unwanted material to other suppliers. The Internet, going the wrong way. The Internet, very effective means of doing this. Do a search on the World Wide Web with the words surplus, inventory, and the product line of the material that you want to liquidate. You will find people who are interested in discussing the purchase of your unwanted material. I give you some examples of the sites we have used in the past for liquidating unwanted material at a distributor, at a retailer, at a manufacturer, where we have found money that we can invest in other opportunities to earn a profit. As we go through this process of creating what we call an approved stock list with each of our clients, we want to put our finger in the dike. We want to prevent dead inventory from being purchased. Most of the dead inventory at many distributors is the result of the purchase of new stock items. I say here, new stock items are usually the source of most dead inventory. It's dead on arrival. You bought 48 of a new item. You sold 24. The other 24 died in your warehouse. They're there for years and years and years. What we have found is that we need discipline. We need discipline to bring in new stock items. Okay? We suggest you insist that a new item questionnaire be filled out when someone wants to bring in a new item. 7 questions. Who is going to buy this product or this product line? Who is our target customer? What are estimates of usage for each of the upcoming 6 months? How much are we going to sell? What are we going to make? How much money are we going to make? What is our estimated profit on bringing in this new inventory? That 4th question, very, very, very important. What effect will usage or sales of this new item have on usage or sales of other existing items? Can we discontinue an existing product if we buy this new product? If it's going to take away half the sales of an existing item, we better tell our buyers, oh, cut your inventory of that existing item because the new one is coming in. How much do we have to buy in relation to those usage estimates? I get very nervous if I buy more than a 3-month supply of any new product, especially if it is very expensive. Okay? The second to last question, extremely important. Where are we going to store this new product? I deal with many warehouse managers who are very frustrated individuals. They firmly believe that buyers are crazy. They firmly believe that buyers have in their mind that warehouse walls are elastic. If something is purchased, the warehouse manager will find a spot for it. Best practice is to assign locations to new items when that new item is initially purchased. So when it arrives, the receiving people know where it goes. Finally, if this item doesn't take off, if we don't sell it well, can we return it? Can we liquidate that material and at least get our money back? Okay? This questionnaire, we have found, in a very effective process, should go to a committee of management: sales, purchasing, general management, operations management. And we found that if 3 people agree to add that product to inventory, that product's chance of dying are very, very, very small. Okay? We found that magic number to be 3. Okay? One person on their own buying a new product without writing any estimates down, chance of that item dying, very, very, very high. Okay?
John?
But yes.
If you don't mind, I have just a brief question, I think. To what extent is a gross margin and inventory turns analysis important in evaluating effective inventory management?
Oh, it is extremely important. GMROI, which is basically your gross margin dollars divided by your average inventory investment. What we have found, if you are making more money, you'll have a higher adjusted margin, Tom. You are better off. What we are looking for most of our customers is a GMROI somewhere above 150 or 1.5. Okay? $1.50 in profit for $1 of average inventory. But please don't confuse GMROI with a similar measurement called a turn-earn index. Okay, the turn-earn index is your average turnover times your gross margin. The turn-earn index measures profitability like GMROI, but on a totally different scale. A turn-earn index of 120 is roughly the equivalent of a GMROI of 150, sort of like centigrade and Fahrenheit temperature. 25 degrees centigrade is exactly the same temperature as 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So I do want to look at this. And Tom, as I said before, if you're making a lot of money, you can be very happy with lower turnover, lower product movement. Okay? Very good question. Getting back
Thanks, John.
to my pleasure. Getting back to the new items. Okay? I want to follow up on new item performance. Not every month, but every week. Compare what you predicted you would sell to what you actually sold. If there's a big difference, if you're not selling that item the way you thought it should be sold, go back to the salesman. Ask them what happened. What can we do to increase sales? What can we do, or what didn't happen that we anticipated happening? Okay? Once you have this approved stock list, okay, I want to be sure that you use that new item questionnaire whenever you add products to the list. If someone wants to buy something that isn't on a particular warehouse's approved stock list, the customer hopefully is going to buy everything that you need to buy. You need to buy 10, the customer should be buying 10. If they're unwilling to buy 10, hopefully they will pay for 10. Set your sales price based on the quantity you must purchase, not what the customer is going to buy from you. If the customer won't buy what you have to buy, or they won't pay for it all, maybe the salesperson should pay for the balance. If that's not possible, the customer won't buy it, customer won't pay for it, please write off that inventory right now, immediately. Consider it a cost of that particular sale. I don't want your inventory on your books, including a lot of material that is not worth what you have on your books showing that it's worth. Okay? Now, Rod mentioned before the cornerstone of inventory management is a demand forecast, good demand forecasting. When I talk about demand forecasting, as I said before, I am talking about a prediction of the quantity of the product that will be sold, transferred, otherwise used during a specific upcoming time period. Most people don't do a good job of forecasting, and this goes with any industry you could imagine. So I want you just to take a minute right now and ask yourself several questions. Right now, who in your organization is responsible for the forecast? One person should be responsible for the forecast of certain products or certain product lines. What method do you use? Does your forecasting team fully understand the methods that they are using? What do you consider? Do you only consider past usage? You might have heard someone say, what we sold in the past is a good indication of what we're going to sell in the future. Well, if that's the only thing you consider, that is the equivalent of me taking you out to the interstate during rush hour and having you try to drive right down the road after I have taken black paint and painted over your windshield. All you can do is look out the rear view mirrors. How successfully are you going to navigate down that road? Not too successfully, I dare say. How often do you forecast? Most of you should be forecasting every month or every week. How far out into the future do you forecast? I had this situation with a client of ours in Bermuda this morning. They are having problems. They're a food distributor. They have major sales at Christmas. Their system last week was still forecasting for November. Your system should start forecasting at a date equal to today's date plus the lead time. If you're importing and you have a 5-month lead time, right now you need to be considering what you're going to sell next April and May. But even more important, you must know how accurate your forecasts have been. We see a lot of problems with forecasting. The if it's on paper, it must be true syndrome. Okay, if it's on paper, it must be true. The computer calculated a forecast, we have to believe it. Most computer systems today based the forecast solely on some average of past usage, and I'm surprised that oftentimes the buyers and planners don't know what the formula is. Okay? Usually there's only one formula. As you're going to see, different items have different patterns of usage. Items with different patterns of usage require different forecasting techniques, different forecasting formulas, different algorithms. How do we know how well we're doing? Well, we verify. I want you to put into place a system where you're verifying, you're comparing the forecast at the end of every month to the quantity actually sold or used during that month. How good were you? You also need to get into your forecasting procedures, into your forecasting system, some method of gathering and evaluating what we call collaborative information, predictions of demand from customers, salespeople, other sources of good information for your forecast. Now, a good forecast will combine 5 different elements. Yes, we are going to consider past usage of the product. Put that into some sort of a mathematical formula that will include observed increases and decreases in usage. But you also have to consider things outside of past usage, what we call external trends, economic environmental factors, events. These can be some holidays, promotions, collaborative information, as I said before, from customers, from salespeople, from other sources. And as I said, you have to be sure that you're dealing with the appropriate forecast horizon, a time period starting at today's date plus the lead time. Well, it's going to take you to get material in. This sounds like a lot of work, but with good forecasting, we average a reduction in inventory of 32.5%. These are the examples from one of the clients that we're working with now. We lowered their forecast error. That is the difference between what they predicted they would sell and what they actually sold, from 583% to 15%. What did this mean? Well, over 9 months, we reduced inventory by 42.7% in one location. They went from 2.1 to 3.6 turns. They're over 4 turns right now, and they are still improving. How do we measure that forecast error? Very important. We take the absolute value of usage or sales minus the forecast and divide that by the lower of forecast or actual usage. So as you see in October, if I had usage of 100 and a forecast of 50, that's an error of 100%. I get exactly the same error in September when I reverse those numbers, forecast of 100 and usage of 50. I believe being understocked is just as bad as being overstocked. Okay? In a study we did several years ago, we found that many distributors, we did this for the NAW, the National Association of Wholesale Distributors, most distributors had lousy forecast accuracy. We had a mean error of 682%, a median error 381%. But we also found that those people who were most profitable had a forecast error less than 10% of the average in their industry. Because the better you forecast, the better you can stock to meet your customers' needs. With a bad forecast, you are forced to overstock. Now, different items have different patterns of usage. Keep that in mind. Items in the same product line next to each other on the shelf in the warehouse will have radically different patterns of usage. A system has to be flexible enough to react to those patterns of usage and apply the best formula to each pattern of usage. But that's only past usage history. What about other things such as events and external factors? How did those affect usage? How did those affect our forecast? Well, I want you to go back to elementary school science class and develop hypotheses. Any event, anything that you think will affect your sales or usage, write it down. Then test it. Did that affect sales or usage? How much? What percentage did our sales go up or down? Then we're going to record that so that when that event, when that promotion occurs again in the future, we have an idea of its effect on sales or usage. And finally, we're going to clean up our usage history, take the effect of that promotion, of that event, out of our usage history because it won't occur at exactly the same time every year. Let's look at a quick example. Here I have Centennial Founders Day last April. I had a 25% reduction in sales, probably because the road out in front of our business was closed. Promotion 1 occurred twice this year, once in June, once in September. Sales went up 26.8% the first time, 14% the second time. Okay? When I run promotion 1 again, I might say, well, we better increase our forecast based on usage history that doesn't reflect the forecast. We better increase our forecast by about 20% because that is our anticipated increased sales due to promotion number 1. For the 100-year celebration, my sales went down 25%. I need to clean up my usage history. I need to add that 25% back into my usage. My usage history doesn't reflect that event because it's not going to occur again, at least in our lifetime. In the case of promotion number 1, we had a 26.8% increase in sales. I'm going to deduct that out of my usage history. Why? Because I don't want it reflected in that usage history because it won't occur at exactly the same time next year. Even if I correct for events and promotions, I still might have unusual activity. When I see a big difference, between the forecast and actual usage, I don't try to hide it. I highlight it so that my buyers and my salespeople can get together and figure out what happened. I want to go through unusual activity with my salespeople because they are closest to the customers and they are best able to determine if I actually experienced activity that was unusual, that will not reoccur, or I'm looking at the start of a new trend. Here you can see in June I had predicted a forecast of 368 pieces of this particular item. I actually sold 1,500. I want to know, why did I sell 1,500? Many systems will automatically just smooth that 1,500 out, bring it down. That's going to be disastrous if that 1,500 is the start of a new trend, if I'm going to be selling 1,500 pieces in July, August, and every future month. The same thing for a sudden decrease in usage. In June, for this item, I predicted I would sell 224. I only sold 40. Why did I only sell 40? Did I lose a customer? Was a customer on a temporary shutdown? Did I have a problem getting the material? If I couldn't get it, I couldn't sell it. What happened? These are good discussions between your salespeople and buyers. I want you to print out big discrepancies between usage and the forecast, but don't do it in product number sequence. Do it by the rank of items. Have your A items or your most popular items first, followed by your B and C items. And within each ranking category, list the items by size of the discrepancies. You're going to be looking at the items that need the most attention first in this case. Examine transactions. Talk to salespeople and customers to determine if any unusual activity occurred. I don't want you to fall into the trap of just listing all items out in product number sequence. You're going to ignore those products that start that have a product number starting with a Z or a 9. They're not going to be addressed as quickly. For every item that you see a big difference in the forecast and actual usage, you'll see one of three conditions occurring. Either you experienced unusual activity, the quantity sold or used was affected by activity that will not reoccur. You're looking at the start of a new sales trend, and if one of those two isn't relevant, then you need a better forecast formula for this item. Okay? If you found unusual activity, remove it from your usage history, adjust it out to determine what we call normalized usage. But, and this may sound strange, if we notice the start of a new trend, best practice is to add the quantity that represents that new trend into our usage history over each of the previous 12 months. In this way, any forecasting methodology that you use will just assume we'll be looking at usage which includes this new trend. You will be adequately stocked for your prior customers in this new demand as well. Finally, the forecast horizon. I'm going to mention this one more time because it is extremely important. Start forecasting at today's date plus the lead time. If you have a 3-month lead time, your forecast for November, December, January is irrelevant. You need to be looking at February and March right now. Now, I said, no matter how good your forecast, you're going to be off quite often because the forecast is a prediction. To ensure that you have adequate stock to meet your customers' needs, we want to maintain safety stock. Safety stock is insurance. It is insurance to protect customer service, to avoid stockouts. Like any other type of insurance, safety stock is an expense. It is not an investment. I don't want to keep more safety stock than I need, but I also realize that some items in your inventory will need more safety stock than other items. you have what we call your painful backorder items. Okay, these are the ones you are embarrassed to be out of. Normally they're going to be 0.5 to 1.5% of the products you stock. For most of you, they're going to be inexpensive items, which is good. We can afford to overstock them. Products with erratic usage and lead times need more safety stock to protect customer service. High profit items, you never want to miss a sale. As Tom was talking about GMROI before, stock reserved for a specific customer. If you promise to have stock on hand for a certain customer, you need to have that quantity you promised included in your safety stock. Where some items require more safety stock, other items require less safety stock. What we found is that items with very consistent usage and lead times, okay? You know what you're going to sell. You know how long it's going to take to get a replenishment shipment in. You don't need much safety stock for those products. Products with a large number of hits or orders typically require less safety stock because the more times you sell a product, the more reliable, the more accurate that forecast is going to be. Low usage items, especially very expensive low usage items, you may decide not to maintain safety stock for those items. Safety stock is really the only decision in inventory management that is subjective. I want you to carry less safety stock where there's very, very little deviation or difference between the forecast represented by that dotted line and usage every month represented by those bars. More safety stock where there's a big difference, big deviation between the usage represented by those bars and the forecast. A good method of apportioning safety stock is the deviation method that measures the average deviation between your forecast and actual usage and determines based on a multiple of that deviation what level of customer service you can attain. Now notice that as I add more and more safety stock, the service level, and let me explain service level for just 1 second. This is the percentage of the time you have the entire quantity of a product a customer wants. Not 90%, not 99%, but the total percentage, the total quantity the customer wants. Notice, as I add more and more safety stock, that approximate service level goes up less and less and less. I get smaller and smaller increases because what I'm saying is I need a lot more safety stock for the relatively few times I'm selling a huge quantity of the product. With good software like Manhattan Associates package, you can determine how much inventory you need for any level of service. You can determine what you want to invest to deliver a certain level of service to your customers. You can be very, very, very successful. You can achieve this goal of effective inventory management. Now, we have covered a lot in the last hour, and I know there's some questions out there. But I want you to start by determining what you need to stock in each branch or warehouse, getting rid of the material that you don't need. Look at your forecast accuracy. Make sure your forecast accuracy is as good as possible. Be state-of-the-art there. You will see a reduction in inventory, double digits at least, double-digit percentages. Maintain safety stock to achieve your desired level of customer service. If you have questions, please ask them now. I'm also giving you my contact information. And I think on that note, Tom, why don't we open it up and see if there are any other questions?
Well, sounds great, John, and thank you very much. And not only are you an expert in effective inventory management, but you're an expert in effective presentations because you really pack about as much as you can in your presentations. We do have a few questions here. Let me just remind people. You can ask a question by typing it into the chat window at the lower left corner of your webcast window and then hit the return key. And I have a couple of questions to start here. You were talking about quite a bit in the second half of your presentation about forecast error and managing that. When a sale moves from one month to the next, say from October to September, is there a best practice in trying to manage that? Is that the average deviation you were talking about?
Okay, yes, there is. And whenever I see a big difference between the forecast and actual sales or usage, if sales move from September to October, I'm going to see a big difference in both months. I'm going to ask my salespeople to talk to the customer. Why did it move? Was it something that we could have predicted? Could we predict better in the future when a project is going to occur? Okay. My reason for looking at the difference between the forecast and actual usage is primarily to improve future forecasting. If it was a one-time only thing, transportation problems, an environmental problem, the weather, what have you, I'm not going to worry about it. But if we can take actions to better predict in the future, we're going to include that in our forecasting procedures.
Does that apply, too, if it moves in the other direction, say from October to September?
Absolutely. And I was dealing with this yesterday. Customer called one of my customers and said, the material that we wanted in January for a product, we need it in December. Okay, we're going to have a lot of air freight expense bringing that material in this month. And my question is, are we looking at a situation where we have to start predicting that this customer is going to be asking for all their material earlier? And if they do, we'll bring it in earlier. The reason we look at that forecast error is not to punish people, not to criticize people, but to improve our future results.
Great. What about a best policy for high-value items? I mean, even into the thousands or even $10,000 for a specific item. Is either just-in-time or vendor-managed inventory, is there a best practice to manage those high-value items?
High-value items, if they are sporadic in nature, if we don't sell or use them on a regular basis, I'm going to try to bring them in as needed for a customer. If I'm forced to stock them because a customer needs it within a day or an hour, I'll keep one, maybe two on the shelf, replenish them as needed. But I want to emphasize on those expensive items that have recurring usage, that are sold or used on a regular basis. We call them AA items. They're high cost and high usage. I want my buyers to micromanage those products. Look at the stock of those at least twice a week. And Thomas, you said, I am going to try to bring in small quantities very often. I'm going to push the turnover on those products, but I want to keep looking at those products so I don't risk a stock out.
So today is December 1st. We've got 1 month left in the year. What can the people on our call today do to start this process, John, before the end of the year? I mean, can somebody start this today?
Absolutely. What I want you to do today, two things. I want you to look at your slow-moving item list. Look to see each and every one of those items. Question each and every one of those, whether they need to be stocked in that particular location. Can we regionally stock them? Can we nationally stock them and ship them out as needed? That's number one. Number two, calculate the forecast error. We gave you the equation here. See how good your forecasting is. If your forecast error is above, say, 25, 30%, I definitely want you to look at better forecasting. And you're going to need to appoint certain individuals to be responsible for the forecast of certain products or product lines. They don't have to do all of the work themselves, but they are responsible for gathering and evaluating all of the information we need for a good forecast for those particular products. And that should keep you busy.
We're at the top of the hour. One final quick question, John, and I hope it is a quick one. What's the best formula to calculate to source an item domestically with 30 days lead time versus an offshore supplier at 120 days lead time at a lower cost? That may be more complex than a 30-second answer.
That's going to depend on the actual cost of the item and the lower cost. What we're going to do is calculate the cost of carrying the additional inventory that we have to maintain for the offshore source, compare that additional inventory, the carrying cost of that additional inventory, to the additional discount that we get from the offshore supplier. If the discount exceeds the cost of carrying the inventory, it's going to be a good deal to go offshore. If not, we're going to buy it locally. So if I have specific numbers, we can run that equation.
Great. John, thank you so much. Let's end with that question. And a final reminder that you can get 10% off the price of Achieving Effective Inventory Management, the 5th edition, at our MDM store, and the information that is there to use the promotion code that we have for this. And John and Rod, both, thank you so much for your insight today. And Rod, thank you and Manhattan Associates for making this program possible. As I mentioned, we will send you a link to access a recording of this program, and please feel free to share it with your colleagues. John, always a pleasure to work with you and be with you today. Thank you for joining us today, and this concludes our program.